Welcome to Behind the Brand, stories and strategies for building your creative business. This is brought to you by the Pinegateroad Studio. You're listening to episode 46. Welcome to Behind the Brand, stories and strategies for building your creative business. Here we take a deep dive into the brands of heart-centered businesses and entrepreneurs and unveil behind the scenes into how they're building their brands, as well as tips and tricks to how you can build your own dream business. I'm your host, Kelsey Kerslake, and I'm the founder of Pinegateroad, a branding studio for businesses and entrepreneurs ready to get their brands completely figured out. From finding your core values, making that beautiful brand identity that speaks to your ideal audience, to figuring out how to style and strategize your social media platforms and launch your new website, we're here to guide you each step along the way to build your dream business. Head to pinegateroad.com to get in touch today about working together. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I am pumped to have you here as always. Today I have a special guest on the show. I have my best friend Megan coming on the show. She recently jumped into entrepreneurship full-time from being a teacher to being a virtual assistant. So I'm really excited for her to share her journey, just how she's been navigating these new waters, what she's been doing to help herself transition through this, and just everything in between. She has been working through some of the Pinegateroad processes, and I'm excited for her to share her experience working through as a Pinegateroad client. So stay tuned for this episode. I'm so excited for you to listen. Today's Branding Bite is brought to you by Build a Booming Brand. Head to pinegateroad.com/education to learn more about this foundational course. So you know by now, if you've been listening, that you're finding your core values is so important to building your business. When you find your core values, you can then learn how to build out your brand. You're not just guessing or doing something that's trendy. You're doing something that's lasting, that's for you, and that's going to really resonate with your customers. So if you want to learn more about finding your core values and building a brand that really resonates and sells and builds you up with confidence, head to pinegateroad.com/education to learn more about taking our signature course, Build a Booming Brand. Hi, Megan. How are you doing?
Hi, Kelsey. I'm good. How are you?
I am great. So for those of you who do not know, Megan is my BFF, and she has just jumped into freelance entrepreneurship, creative entrepreneurship. What are you calling it?
Passion-based entrepreneurship.
Yes. All right. That was something Megan was visiting me a couple weeks ago, and we were doing her website and her photo shoot and all of that stuff. And that was something we came up with just for her.
Well,
I think in a bathroom, right? When we were out to dinner.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, so I wanted to bring Megan on the show because she's just jumped into her freelance career, and it kind of was a pivot from what she was doing in the past. And I wanted to bring her on just because I know that this is a place that a lot of people are in. They're wondering if their career that they've been in is something that they should continue pursuing. They're trying to have more freedom, more joy, more doing what they actually love in their day-to-day life. And they oftentimes think that becoming an entrepreneur, running their own business, leaping into doing their own thing full-time is the way to go. So I just wanted to give everybody kind of a firsthand experience of what that might be like. And now I'm a year past that, kind of jumping into everything. And so you're doing something completely different than me, Megan. And I definitely wanted to share what your experience has been, kind of just getting your business up and running, what made your decision to quit your job and all of that stuff. So I'm excited to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I would never not have you.
Much appreciated, Kelsey.
Yeah. So, okay. First of all, I want you to share a little bit about your background, what you were doing before this, and just how you decided to kind of make the leap and do what you're doing today.
Yeah. So I have known Kelsey since undergrad, and I started there doing linguistics and French. And then with that, I wasn't really sure what to do. So I ended up becoming a French teacher and getting a master's in secondary education. And then in my mind, I didn't really think I would do it forever. But then once I was in it, I thought that I would just stay a teacher for like a decade and then maybe even move into like being a building principal. And I actually started a master's program, which I have not continued with. But so yeah, I was my last job, I was teaching for 3 years in an inner city charter school, actually as a French language immersion teacher. And it was such a good fit for me at first because I went from an environment where I did have good coworkers, but I didn't totally click with the like mission and values of the school. And then I went to a place where we were really all about empowering lower income families. And I was working with very like-minded people. But then the stress of it just got to a point where I just couldn't handle it anymore. And the impetus really for me to do something else was just life happening too much. And I just was not feeling myself anymore. And as you know, Kelsey, I had a really crazy last year, and just with some personal like loss in the family, and I got married and I bought a house. It was just a lot. And I was so sad that I was like unrecognizable to you, Kelsey, and to my husband.
Yes.
And you guys were super worried about me. And I knew that I needed to change, that I just needed to do something. So, yeah.
And I think, yeah, even though there was a lot of like personal stuff happening, I think a lot of your stress was coming from your day-to-day experience at your job.
Right.
And even though you loved French and you had been doing that for forever, and for those of you who don't know the language immersion school, Megan was actually like speaking in French the whole day. So she was teaching like the regular math and social studies and all of those things.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
That's okay. Well, no, that's something like I know we talk about, but
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
Right.
So yeah, you were speaking in French, teaching the third grade at like an inner city school. And it just got very like, just a lot of stress on top of the kind of like circumstances you were going
Right.
through
And I
in
just
your
wasn't
life outside of that.
right. And I just wasn't able to take care of myself anymore. And I wasn't even able to really take care of relationships. I mean, since I've started being an entrepreneur, Kelsey, I'm able to talk to you almost like every day. And you would maybe hear from me like once a month before. Because
Right.
I was
Yeah,
just
it was
so inundated with.
I always knew like when you were at school, like we would talk, but maybe like once a month on a Sunday, we would have like a 20-minute conversation while you were in school. And then I remember like every summer, then I'm like, I get to talk to Megan every day after work. And it was like the best.
Yes. And you have no idea how much of a relief it is right now seeing like all this back to school stuff and understanding that it's like August, that I don't have to go back to school. I mean, granted, there are definitely stressors and challenges of being an entrepreneur, but just for the first time in so long, I don't have this doom of the impending school year, and it's so great.
Yeah. So what kind of feelings were you like, because I know sometimes there's like a difference between struggling and maybe just like the everyday, like, you know, you go through hardships in life. Your job isn't always going to be 100% easy peasy, but like, what was kind of that difference between just like the downside of any job that you're going to be in and like, this is not a sustainable place for me to be for my mental health?
Right. Well, it got to a point where like systematically, I could just see that this organization was not really taking care of me and like was not really working in the best interest of the students either. And no matter what I did, I felt like I was just at a dead end. And it just got to a point where I just felt so helpless. And yeah, like any job is going to be challenging, but it's like I was like a hamster on a wheel, and it would just never end. Like I wasn't going anywhere with the hard work that I was doing. And there wasn't really much room for me to like grow and like within the organization. And it just got to a point where it was almost like a depression. Like I just couldn't snap myself out of it. And while I loved my work friends and I still love them so much, we were just consumed with work. And like, we just got so close because it was like we were going through trauma together. And like this summer we've been texting like PTSD things. And I mean, it's not it's just education in general can be that way. And there needs to be a lot of changes. And like maybe if I had stayed, eventually it would have happened. But just with a lot of the systemic inequities in the like in any sort of education system, it's going to take decades to fix it. And like I think that there are other ways that I can leverage myself to be a change agent and bring more change. But I kind of need to look out for myself, and then whatever skills and like even money I gain for being an entrepreneur, then I use that to leverage it and to try to fix things. But I just, to answer your question, I felt so stuck, and it wasn't just, and there was no way out besides leaving. Yeah. So,
and so there were some like kind of cool things that happened, not like cool, but it's just crazy how many things happen for a reason. So like right around the same time that you were deciding to quit your job, your husband got a new job and you had to move.
Exactly. So that was another huge impetus, because I was saying to myself, yeah, I'll stay where I live and I'll just do this. But I could have so easily just signed another contract at my school and just done it another year. But really what pushed me even further was the timing. Yeah. Last March, my husband found out that he got a promotion and it moved us to Chicago. So I was like, no time better than the present, I guess, to just do it. And, you know, we had some money saved up, and it was, I mean, it just kind of worked out. And then I had the summer to just kind of decompress. I still got paid through July, which was awesome. And it just gave me time to do the work that I needed to do. And it's now or never, baby. And if this doesn't work, you know, I'll figure that out later. Or, you know, there are other options I can explore. Or I'm also teaching part-time French at a community college, just 2 nights a week this semester. But so I'm still doing like a side hustle, but sometimes you just got to go for it. And qui ne tente rien n'a rien. Sorry, that's a French proverb that means who tries nothing has nothing. And now was just kind of the best time to make a crazy situation into an opportunity.
Absolutely. So for those the people listening who don't know what you're doing, why don't you share a little bit about how you decided what to do when you knew that your job was not what you wanted to do, and kind of the steps you took to start your business?
Okay, so actually, Kelsey mentioned that there were people called VAs, virtual assistants out there, and I had never really heard of it. But so it just made sense, though, because Kelsey pointed out that I am someone who really likes to support other people and really rally behind them. I was involved in like little political campaigns for student government at the University of Iowa, and it just made sense. So, and I realized also, I thought about what did I really like about my job to begin with? My favorite part of teaching, as much as I love the kids, I loved being a grade level leader. I loved organizing. I loved doing administrative tasks. I loved even putting together presentations and trying to be kind of like a thought leader as far as my subject area was concerned. And so I ended up just doing more research, and everyone says just hang out in Facebook groups, but that really does help a lot because you can Google VA, and I was getting like the different websites where people can post like, I can do whatever, hire me, like Upwork and stuff like that. But I really got more ideas about what I could do from doing Facebook research and just research in general, and even a little bit of Instagram snooping, and everyone does it. Like, I feel like such a creep though when I'm like searching hashtags or like searching other people's profiles. But and my vision is still kind of evolving every day also, but I just kind of look to see what was out there, but understanding too that you don't want to just totally copy what someone else is doing, because you could just be copying their failure. But I think for anyone who's interested in doing a creative business, you start following people that are interesting to you and kind of start seeing what they can, what they're offering. I mean, and there's so much out there that I didn't even realize from these Facebook groups, like holistic healers and like all sorts of really neat entrepreneurial ventures that women like us are doing. So you do the research and then you start brainstorming about what you're going to do. And then, not to shamelessly plug you here, Kelsey, but then you find somebody who can help you bring that vision to fruition with proper branding and someone who's been there before. And my brother always told me when I was younger, like, find someone who's doing what you want to do and do what they do. And Kelsey, you're very much you're doing what I want to do. I mean, you got this whole awesome brand. So I did what you did and I took your courses and, from somebody that I trusted and that got results not only for themselves, but for other clients too. And it took me months to work through a lot of this stuff. And I was lucky that I was getting paid from my school in the summertime when I wasn't working, but I just had to really sit down and think about this. And I got lucky because my first client was actually my dog trainer. I have a little puggle, a pug beagle mix. And my dog trainer's like, oh, you're going to be a VA. Do you want to help me with some stuff? I'm like, sure. And you just start taking clients, and the more you work through it, the more you figure it out. And then of course there's like the nitty gritty stuff too. Like just because I'm paranoid and I don't want to mix any of my like personal finances with my business, I went ahead and just like established an LLC. Like back in March, I started researching like, what do you have to do that? Because I'm like, I want a computer and tax write-offs and stuff. So I started researching. I paid a company called Inkfile to register me. In Illinois, it would have cost me like $600. So I just went ahead and did it in Missouri, in my native state, for like $50 and just went through it. And then I realized, Kelsey, listening to one of your podcasts with Autumn Witt-Boyd, that really cool attorney for creative entrepreneurs. She's like, you don't have to do an LLC. You can be a sole entrepreneur or, a sole proprietor. So oops, you live and you learn, but so I just kind of took some of those steps, opened up. Once I had my EIN number, my employer identification number with the IRS, I opened up a bank account, and then I figured out merchant services, and people are like, what? And it's just a wait for
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people, it's like what you do with FreshBooks and how people can put their stuff in there. But again, because I'm paranoid, I'm like QuickBooks Online for my accounting, and they have a nice merchant services that's super quick to sign up. So when you send an invoice, people can just boop, boop, put in their credit card stuff and you get their money without, and
I like the sound effects there.
Yeah. Boop, boop, beep. It's essentially what PayPal does too. And some of my clients were like, can I just pay you with PayPal? I'm like, yeah, it's essentially the same thing. But I found an accounting software that I liked. And it was some trial and error. At first I got, QuickBooks Desktop and I hated it, but then I went to the online version. But I got a lot of good advice. Even if you're not going to be a virtual assistant, if you go to these VA hangouts, you see a lot of really good discussions about what's the best accounting software or invoicing software or social media software. And I just started building my toolbox from there. And
I even think in a lot of other, like, just Facebook groups in general for entrepreneurs, so many people are willing to just help you get started with that free advice. And especially when you're getting started, there's like a lot of people who have been there and kind of like tested those waters. I think it gets a little harder. Like sometimes I'll be like, what are these launch strategies? Anybody have any like opinions? And I get like crickets, which is, it is what it is. But because so many people have started businesses, they're like, oh yeah, I tried that out and it was terrible, or this one is awesome and blah, blah, blah. So just getting in those Facebook groups is great for when you're starting out. And I wish I had that when I started out because it wasn't really a thing back then.
Right. Yeah. When you started Pinegateroad in grad school, that wasn't a thing.
No, I learned little by little, but I wasn't like, you're jumping in being like, okay, this is my business. I'm starting, but I need to make money. Like mine started on a whim. Like I didn't even mean to start a business. So now, yes, I'm at that place where I'm like, okay, this is supporting me. I need to make money. I have these systems in place, blah, blah, blah. But I had a lot of time to experiment as I was growing my business, where you're kind of like in this rush, not a rush, but just like you need to be serious right off the bat.
Right. Exactly.
With what you're doing. So
yeah. But the Facebook groups are great. And even it is amazing how receptive people are to newbies, and even just like introducing yourself in Facebook groups, especially if you find kind of smaller, like more intimate ones, and people are super friendly. And I've gotten a lot of good advice from them. So yeah.
So I would love to talk about, because I would love to talk about your experience in Build a Booming Brand, and not just as like a, yes, take Build a Booming Brand, blah, blah, blah. But I know, I feel like doing that foundational work is sometimes something that like people just, they want to skip past. Like they want to get into the like, I'm going to make my brand, I'm going to do my offerings and all of that stuff, which is like often what you feel like you have to jump towards because that's what you see out there. But I would love your firsthand experience of the difference that working through that foundational, like the value setting, the mission setting, like the research, how what we do and Build a Booming Brand helped you get to where you are now.
Yeah. It was so pivotal for me because I just went in being like, I want to do this and make money. But Build a Booming Brand just kind of forces you to sit and really think about things and to research. And it took me a minute to work through it because I actually started it when I was still working. But once I was able to really focus all of my time into my business, I just was disciplined and got through it. But it was so worth the time and the resources. Like I remember even just the first week, it's like, what's your business name? I'm like, I don't know. Kelsey, you actually helped me with my business name.
So I made it, but I was like, you should be a VA, and Megan's middle name is Kathleen. So I'm like, Meg K, the VA.
Yeah. But then just going through that, and then I remember the first week, it's why are you going into business? And I remember in the Facebook group, Kelsey, with the other your other students in Build a Booming Brand were like, oh my gosh, I've been in business for a minute, but I haven't even thought about that. And how that's just such a like big driving force of a lot of businesses. And if you don't really have that figured out, you don't really have a message to translate to your audience and like through your marketing and through your offerings. But yeah, so I'm actually just looking through my notes here that I have a bunch of notes from your course in Evernote. But yeah, and then figuring out your ideal day and where you want to be in 5 to 10 years, and your future vision, it just forced me so much to just sit and think through things. But then I started just writing a lot of different words. And then later on in the course, not to give away your trade secrets here, Kelsey, but then we had to go back and really see like, what were the things that you kept seeing over and over again? And I've done this in my research before for my master's in education, like taking notes and then coding them. So through this whole thing, we took notes about our thoughts and about our competition. And then I had to actually code them and go through and like figure out what my 3 big values are. And like, I had thought of a couple like out of nowhere, but they were pretty true to what I came up with, but just your process of finding the actual, your core values was just like so scientific. It was amazing. And they resonate with me so much. And then just doing like industry research, I went out and I just found people that were VAs that I thought maybe I would want to be something like, and then Build a Booming Brand has you go through and answer questions like, as the audience member, how did you feel about interacting with this brand? What do you think their values are? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And it helped me understand visually what has been done and what is being done. And then more science that Kelsey has you do in Build a Booming Brand. You plot these things. It's super fun. I'm kind of a nerd, but I love it. And then
I'm a huge nerd too. I'm like, I need to know, like, branding, I feel like, can be very just like, if you're not in it, you can feel like people are just like pulling this out of their head, out of like nowhere.
Right.
And I'm like, nope, there is a really big reason why we're doing this exactly that way. And I have this whole process that we work through.
And like, even the values that I pulled out of nowhere, like I said, they're very close to what I came up with using your super duper scientific method, but they don't capture the same essence. And like, even Kelsey, when you were taking my photos, you're like, think back to your values. And I'm like, joy, engage. And then I could like challenge that or channel that into my smile or whatever when you were photographing me. But yeah, so that was just so neat to like totally understand and be guided going through what your industry has to offer. And strategically, I mean, and in some regards, you don't want to stray too much from the norm of your industry, but then you can like be strategic about the other about your other brand and design choices. And then it
just helps create like a cohesive picture throughout
exactly.
everything. And I think it's sometimes like you get very inundated by the competition in general, and you're like, so-and-so's doing this, I should do that, or like they're doing this, I can't do that. And the whole thing, it's like, no, you find out what like you uniquely want to do in your life, what values like you want to live out through this whole big process, and then you can build that into your business.
Exactly.
And I think you did an amazing job because, guys, Megan did this all on her own, and she was just sending me, like, by working through the course, you do what we do with our clients individually, but on your own. And Megan was, like, going above and beyond with some of this stuff. She was sending me, like, all these word maps that she was making, and it was just, like, crazy.
Documents.
She got really into it, and it made me really happy just to see how the process can work even when, like, I'm not doing it, and when students are working through it. And I've had a couple other students do the same thing and send me their stuff. And it's just been incredible to see what they're coming up with when they really take the time to work through that process, and how different they can make their brand or how to live out all of those things in real life. Because if you didn't work through that, like, would you have gotten to like the packages that you're doing or who you're going to be targeting as your target consumer and things like that? Like, how would you have felt?
Oh gosh. And one of my favorite activities that you had us do was coming up with our like ideal client. And I made my girl so cute. She has a dog named Cookie and like, she's a wedding photographer. I literally have no wedding photographer clients right now, but just kind of understanding that. And what's so hard for me being a perfectionist sometimes is understanding that it's going to evolve and it's okay. But just taking the leap and putting something out there. Am I going to have a client named Maggie who lives in Austin who loves to give all of her money to charity, who has a dog named Cookie? Probably not. But it's a fun place to start. And it's
right. And I think getting specific about those people, it helps you actually attract real people, because when you're too general, too broad, then you're not resonating with anyone.
Exactly. And I know that I'm going to keep, evolving, and that's fine, but you got to start somewhere. And I remember, Kelsey, when you and I finally sat down to do my website in Cleveland last week, I pretty much told you what my colors were because I just knew. After doing all that research, I knew what I needed. And you helped me too, but like, for example, I noticed that a lot of EA's Squarespace is so nice, but I just saw so much white Squarespace, like very graphic. And I didn't want that. I wanted something like, I don't want to stray too far from the industry standard, but I knew I needed something a little more less white. Anyway, so you made me an awesome template, but then I'm like navy blue, and I would have never ever thought of that. But that's through the scientific branding voodoo that you had me do. I'm like, that's going to be one of my
and
colors.
you have a very different website now, and everything, like, I did create it, and that will be a template that's available through pinegateroad, but it was everything that like you came up with and build a booming brand.
Right.
And then I was able just to translate that because you did all of that work.
Right.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And
I was
like,
very thrilled with what you came up
I was
with.
so excited. And then, okay, so not only did you have us build out our brand visions, our 3 values, but you also had us think about what does this look like in your daily life and what does it look like aesthetically? Mind you, I don't have any formal designer training. I've just looked over Kelsey's shoulder in undergrad and when she was working on her MFA. So I, just by osmosis, I know a little bit of design stuff, but I was able to just come up with it because I was doing all this thinking, and then you just popped it into a beautiful, not just popped it in, you have a wonderful creative brain, but you were able to translate all of that into a wonderful show it. And it's just so great. It's wonderful.
It was really like, I loved what you had, and you being able to do all that pre-work. It was like the easiest for me. Like it just, because I knew that what you were putting out there, like you were like, I need a sans serif and a serif, and it needs to pair like this, and
right,
it kind of
because it goes with my vision of harmony.
Sense.
And I thought about what does harmony look like, and I'm like,
and you came up with that. Like I popped it into a little design, but that was all of your thoughts. And even though you're not a designer, you were able to come up with that stuff through going through Build a Booming Brand.
Right.
And what I love about the course specifically is because even if you aren't ready to go get like a custom design or anything like that, you can use those values and how you live them out, and you can go get like a pre-made Etsy thing that really corresponds with your values because you know what they are. You're not just going to get something that looks cool or looks trendy or you think will work. You'll know it works when you work through this.
Exactly. Totally. Oh my gosh. And can I just rant for 2 seconds off topic?
Yes.
When I see people like on Facebook groups, like, I'm going to make a quick logo. Which one do you like better? My name has fire in it, so I have a flame. I'm like, no, you need professionals to do that. You need to think through, what are your brand values? Is it a big flame? I don't think so. This is an intellectual art form. Design is, and branding. But anyway, I'm off my soapbox.
No, and I also have, I have a pet peeve about that too. And it's okay because it's people don't know, or they haven't worked through it, and they want people's opinion.
Right.
But the whole point of branding is to make it so that it resonates with your target consumer. And if you're just posting to random people saying I like it or I don't like it, that isn't what is resonating with your consumer.
Right. It's not
there's not meaning behind that. There's no values. There's no purpose. So working through this helps you build the confidence in your own decision-making skills. So you don't have to pop something and be like, what typeface does this random person like better? That doesn't even matter to your business.
Right. And again, I have no formal design training, and I was able to work through this. So yeah, but I mean, I also understand, I understand design from a pedagogical, educational standpoint, as I've had to design my own research projects and code notes and find commonality themes, but just using that and applying that to build a booming brand, it was so fun. I mean, it took me a minute, but I feel so good about my brand now, and I'm ready to just plug away and work and kind of evolve my offerings and what I think my ideal client is as time goes on and as I get more experience. But I'm so proud of my website, and I'm so proud of my brand. And it's not haphazard. It's because I went through Build a Booming Brand. And really, if people do this, then you can so easily, without spending thousands of dollars on on someone like you, Kelsey, sorry, but they can,
no, I know. That's why I created it. There was another option.
Right, but they can go then and find templates that resonate with that and still be really strategic and about all of that, and not just go at it haphazardly because it looks nice. It's so wonderful.
I love it.
Yes.
So I would love to hear just about how your first month of entrepreneurship has been. Maybe any tips you have for anybody going through that or like starting off and just how things are going for you.
Yeah, things are, some days I'm like, yeah, and other days I'm like, wow, but um
This is how Megan and I talk literally all the time. Like, we don't make real sentences. We just make noises about our feelings.
yeah. So we're real sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. So yes, I think just understanding that if I get my feelings hurt because someone rejects me or like my offerings, not to internalize it and not to take it personally. I hate to relate this back to my online dating days when I decided I was going to find my husband Alex on Match.com. But it's like, okay, like if you're with, on a date with somebody and it's just not a good fit, like there's nothing inherently wrong with you as a person or what you have to offer the world. It's not a fit, and that's okay. And you keep evolving and putting your best foot forward. And my consult calls are kind of like dates, and I got real good at dating because I didn't find Alex and, for a few minutes. And it's like, yeah, if you kind of mess up the first few times, you just learn and you adjust, and that's life. And, having this be so new for me, I'm used to knowing what I'm doing. Like with the Match.com game, like I got good at it, good enough to find Alex, my husband, or like teaching. I got really good at it and I knew exactly what I was doing. And now I'm like, oh, snap. Like I can make some mistakes, but it's not something for me to internalize or to take personally.
Exactly.
Those are opportunities to grow, and you're going to make mistakes. And I was even talking to Kelsey earlier. I'm like, do you make mistakes too? And she's like, yeah. So, I think just trying not to internalize any rejections is great. One thing I've learned from one of your previous podcasts, Kelsey, is that you kind of separate yourself as a person from your product or your service that you're offering. And I think that kind of helps detach.
I try to. I'm going through this right now, like, personally. And I'm finding a lot of issues with my mental state around my business. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to detach the two.
Right.
Because it's really hard when you're like, my business is who I am as a person. Mm-hmm. And if things aren't going exactly as planned, then you start to feel really bad about yourself. And that isn't what needs to happen. So I'm doing a lot of meditating and just intentional work around separating the two.
Yeah.
It's hard, but
when working I was teaching, I'm like, this is my craft and my passion, and I'm very good at it. And it's hard to take feedback sometimes, but it's like, hey, it's nothing personal. This is just what you do. It's one facet of the multi-facets that you are as a human. And Pinegateroad is an extension of you, so to speak, but it's not who you are. And Meg the VA is not where all my self-worth is. And shoot, at the end of the day, if I decide this isn't right for me, I'll move on. But at least I'm trying it, But it's hard not to get your ego in it and to not take things personally. And
I think you mentioned with the client calls too, just like how it's like the dating kind of. Gosh. I will still say that even though I've gotten a little bit more strategic about how calls go, or, I just have more of a plan. Like before it was very willy-nilly. And now I'm like, oh, okay, like here, like let me listen to what like you're doing in your business. And then we'll like walk through the next steps. Right. And, there's more of a strategy behind it. But I still I literally sit here in a ball of sweat. Like when I get off a client call, like you don't want to see what my t-shirts look like. Like it's crazy. I get so nervous on calls still. And it's been 6 years.
Right. And I'm so used to speaking to people, being an educator, and I'm still continuing to educate, but just what can you offer me? I'm like, ugh. I'm like, okay, we gotta work on our pitch here a little bit. Yeah. But I think more advice I would offer is get a good support network. I'm still kind of working on finding mine in my new home of Chicago, but, and not to just blast all my personal nonsense out in the podcast land, but even if you have a good therapist, I have one that I've talked to for 5 years, and she's in St. Louis, and I was like, hey, can we FaceTime? So I had a call with her last week and it was just nice. And it's like, yeah, still, you can't just isolate yourself. You got to have, your people around you. So I think having a good support network is important, whether that be, your family or a close friend or people you meet on the internet or therapist or coach or whatever. I think it's super important to have a support network. And then with what you were talking about, Kelsey, with like your meditation, I think doing something for yourself that just helps you be zen and mindful, like yoga for me, or I just joined the rowing team in Chicago. And like, that's kind of a nice way for me to stay balanced and stay zen. So that's my advice.
Yay. All right. Is there anything else you just want to share about your journey so far? I know it's a new one, but just if you were like, if anybody else was doing this, I want them to know this.
If anybody is thinking about getting merchant services with their bank, don't do it because they take like 2 weeks to process it. They mean well, but yeah, don't do that. Sorry.
That's okay.
I mean, I think before I started it, I was so reluctant to just like start researching out there. And I'm like, and I remember before I was like, how should I do my invoicing? If only I had just gotten on the internet and just started, I don't know what I was afraid of, but only just started like looking into it and doing a little more research, I think I would have been less frantic in my head. And yeah, so anybody who's kind of going through this, a lot of other people have too, and just start looking on the internet, especially Facebook groups, or even like Instagram, or like there's some really great like thought leaders in your industry. Like for VAing, for example, there are a handful of people who most of their VA work now is just helping other VAs, and they have great free content. Even if you don't buy their stuff, their freebies are great and you get on their list. And I just wish I would have done that stuff sooner so that I wouldn't have just had such a cluster in my head of crazy thoughts.
Yeah, but you were also dealing with like finishing up your school
This is
year and
true.
all that. Like, I know you put a lot of pressure on yourself, and I think you started it when you were meant to.
Right. This is true. So yeah, or if you're not sure, like, should I incorporate or not? Like, I don't know. An LLC is not that hard. Or see if you can talk to your CPA if you have one, or get some quick legal counsel, or like great podcasts. Like I had mentioned earlier, Autumn Wet Boyd, that one, your attorney friend, she like talked through that stuff. So yeah, just do some research. But I would, especially if you have any assets of your own, or if like your significant other has assets, I would totally recommend as soon as you can, be a sole proprietor. Okay, this is not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. My husband is, sorry. So I feel like I'm very attorney saying this. I'm not an attorney, but I would recommend not actually giving real legal advice, is to get that stuff set up as soon as possible and get a separate bank account for your business so that you just don't have to worry about it later, and you don't have to worry about separating your business financials from your personal one.
I agree.
So
I'm still, mine's a little messed up, and because I never like separated it early on, I am struggling through this.
Yeah. I mean, when I opened my
and a lot of my accounts are like, they're like 4 years set up old, just in my like personal name, or even before my married name, and things are just scattered.
Dude,
so that is something I personally need to work through.
Licenses on you. Unfortunately,
I know,
my
right?
marriage licenses are all in St. Louis, and I've already run out of copies. So next time I go, I'm just going to have to get some more copies of it.
I just have one. I officially am Kelsey Kerslake on my driver's license as of last week.
I'm so proud of you.
Yes.
Now you just have to go to the Social Security Bureau and get that changed.
Yep. I know.
I'm really proud of you. Good job. That only took you
Thanks.
months. It's okay. But yeah,
Megan knows my struggle with life.
It's okay. Life can be, as I used to tell my students, they used to call me Madam Megan, which was kind of endearing. And they'd be like, oh, Madam Megan, I'm having such a bad day. I'm like, being a person's hard sometimes. It's okay. You're going to be fine. And they're like, okay.
Yes.
Can I have a hug? I'm like, okay. Those were the nicer moments of teaching that I'll definitely miss. Being a person's hard sometimes. Yeah, and I miss giving unsolicited advice to young people, but it's okay.
You get to through this podcast, not young people, but you get to give unsolicited advice here. Yay. All right. So for our last question, I would love for you to just share about something that you're loving right now, like any products or services or just anything.
Okay, I have 3 things. I've thought about
3
in advance. I tried something here in Chicago this weekend that I never had before. I don't know if they have it where you are, Kelsey, in Cleveland, but it's frozen rosé.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I never had that. So that was great. I am also loving my bullet journal. And I know everyone's like, I love my bullet journal. I love mine that has the numbers. I don't know how you say it. The Electrum 19.
The Electrum?
Yeah.
I have the same, well, I don't know if I have the same exact one as you, but I have Electrum one too.
Yeah. And at first I thought I had to be like so perfect with mine, but then I've realized like I don't need to log my daily habits or have all my like cute journal, entries about like, I'm looking in mine right now. Like I have.
Is it the coffee stain one? Because side note, I spilled a whole cup of coffee on Megan's journal when she was here.
It's fine, but I had like a travel log and like a health log. I never logged any, and I would go like weeks without doing it. But this thing is like my brain now, and it's not the prettiest thing ever, but it helps me get my stuff done. And actually, I have a client, and I just mailed her one of these. I'm like, what's your favorite color and what's your address? I'm getting you one. Aww. It's part of, it's included in your services. So, yeah, and I'm actually making my husband start bullet journaling also. So it's like, it's nothing so pretty. I literally just did mine this week, and it's not the prettiest thing, but I'm like, okay, great. Here's what I need to do today. So right. I'm loving that. So better done than perfect, ladies and gentlemen. And
I agree. The same thing like happened with mine. Like I thought I had to be so pretty with it, and it just got insane. And now mine's a glorified to-do list.
And it's wonderful, but it's still nice and bullet-y and like
exactly.
Yeah, I started with this one article on BuzzFeed that kind of told you how to get started. And I think that's a really good starting place because it just kind of gives you the general idea of what you can do with it. But I was so caught up on everything. Like literally all I have is like my month at a glance with like what's happening. I have my month, like things I need to do before the month's end. And then I just have each week, like Monday through Thursday on a page, Friday and the weekend on another page with a chunk of things I need to get done that week. And that works for me. It's so simple. And then if I have like a meeting, I just do it in the next page, put that page in the table of contents. But yeah, my coffee stained one is like running out of pages. So I'm actually going to start a new one like today. So
you'll just know it was from me. And
you know what? We dried it out real fast, Kelsey. It's fine. And then my third thing that I'm really loving right now is my 20-pound pug beagle mix named Lucy. And I got her at the Bluegrass Pug Rescue in Louisville, Kentucky. It was only like 4 hours away from St. Louis, but they're just such a great rescue. They're definitely no kill. Lucy was at her foster dad's house, Kentucky Paul. Okay, that's his like email handle, Kentucky Paul, for like 9 months. And they took such good care of her, and they just kept her until we were ready for her. And they have so many really cute pugs and puggles right now. There's Roxy, there's Molly, there's Victor, Tank, all these like really cute little puppies that are looking for their forever homes. So I'm loving the Bluegrass Pug Rescue right now, and my dog, who is fortunately sleeping and not barking right now. So
Eaton's sleeping right next to me too.
Oh, remember when I held her on my chest last week and tied a blanket around her? And
Megan literally used a blanket and made it into a baby Bjorn.
He was like 8 pounds.
And like and just like tied Eaton to her body and did all of her work all day. It was adorable.
I cannot do that with my dog. So
I tried to do it with Eaton, and I'm like, I don't even know how Megan made this like makeshift baby Bjorn because it didn't work. And Eaton was just like hanging at my knees in this blanket that was hanging around my neck, and I was like, this isn't real.
That's hilarious. Yes.
So Eaton misses being puppy worn all around the house.
Tell Eaton
she's very sad now.
I'll wear her again.
She's like, why is my Aunt Megan not here to just pay attention to me all day long? All right. So as the last thing, I would love for you to tell everyone where they can find you and what services you're providing and just where to check you out.
Yeah. So you can check out my really cool website built by, thanks to Build a Booming Brand and Kelsey at Pinegateroad. It's megk.theva.com. You can check me on Instagram. It's megk_the_VA. And I have some really cute pictures of my dog there. Yeah. So I'm kind of always like revising what I'm doing. I kind of started VAing as a general, but what I'm really into offering right now, what I'm really enjoying is project management and like general organizing and helping my clients figure out what their big priorities are and what they can pass off to me. And then I like doing the other things. Also show notes for podcasts, social media management, and I am loving doing Pinterest management right now for one of my clients. And then also a service that I didn't notice anyone else was offering, so I'm offering it, social impact consulting. I feel like so much with millennials, we're really trying to be more socially aware and socially conscious and wanting to go with brands that give back to the environment, like Tom's Shoes or even my hair salon. I kind of went with it because they are very like eco-conscious and they use like my dead hair on the floor. They like donate it to an organization that uses all this hair to like soak up oil spills. Anyway, I want to help entrepreneurs figure out how they can leverage themselves and make an impact in the community and where they really want to give their resources to and how to let their clients and their constituents know about it. So also offering social impact consulting for entrepreneurs.
Yay. And then another thing that you're doing that I just want to shout out to you, because I know a lot of creative entrepreneurs are getting into this, is doing your course creation package.
I forgot to mention my course creation. I'm so sorry.
Yes. So Megan helped me recently with like doing a new course that I'm doing, and she was amazing. And because of her educational background, her master's in education, it was just so cool. Like being able to take what I know from what I needed to teach and then you leveraging that and being like, you should add a chart or a graph here, or like, this is a better way for you to position that so that your students can learn better and really like use that information in this way. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was crazy.
Yes. So yes, I'm also offering a course creation package. So yeah, that was so fun. And
yeah. So if any,
and I know my stuff about education, so I'm really excited to offer. Created that offering like last week. So yes.
Yep. So
I do course
if anybody
creation.
if you have a course idea, and you know kind of like the content, but don't necessarily know how to put it all together in a way that really makes sense for your students, like Megan, you're going to be awesome at it. You already were with the one we did, and now I'm just like so pumped for other people to use it.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing everything. It was cool and interesting to like try to be super serious on this.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for sharing, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. We're done. Thank you to our sponsor, Audible.com, for supporting the show. Please head to audibletrial.com/pinegateroad to get a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute and head to iTunes to rate and review the show. It makes a big difference in growing the show, and I'll be here giving you a virtual high five behind the scenes. You can follow along with the studio for branding tips, advice, and general inspiration on Instagram, username pinegateroad, or by heading to pinegateroad.com for everything else happening in the studio. Sending lots of love and wishing you an awesome week. You've got this.